Welcome to a capital hungry breakdown of NZDUSD. Okay, so we're basically looking at NZDUSD here. We want to take advantage of some continued NZD weakness, especially after RBA, the Reserve Bank of Australia, has signaled out more rate cuts for the Australian dollar. Now, of course, the New Zealand dollar and the Australian dollar are separate currencies and entities, but based on their geographical location and their close trade ties, it's very similar to comparing, let's just say, Canada and the US, where a lot of economic and where a lot of economic policies sort of follow suit of their bigger ally, I guess you can say, right? Where Canada usually just follows suit with whatever the U.S. is going. For example, if the U.S. has a recession, Canada will see a ripple effect roll into that. It's very similar to all global ties, but there's a lot of trade ties that are closer, right? And NZD and AUD are one of those ties. So, speaking on that, that also means that any further trade war tensions, as we saw on Friday when Trump had a meeting with the Prime Minister of Australia and spoke about China needing to buy more agriculture from the US, it really triggered more downside on the Australian dollar, and we saw the New Zealand dollar follow, as well as safe haven start to gain some strength end of the week, as we saw with gold, right? So the thing about this is we want to play off the technicals off this pair, get a retest, and see some potential further downside. Because when we look at the weekly, there is this large range to the left. Sorry about that. There is this large range to the left that has not been filled since like 2015, right? And we are in that territory where we have finally broken below these lows, historical lows, and we can come dig deeper into that area. Right? So even though USD may face some weakness as well, I still think that NZD is a lot weaker than the USD in this specific pair, and we can take advantage of that, especially as even the weaker the US dollar gets, it does get appealing for foreign investors, and it does start to hold its strength or become neutral. And you can see the dollar coincide with gold and these other safe havens, as the dollar sometimes becomes a haven itself. When it becomes so low due to the appeal with low bonds and all that stuff from foreign investors that we speak about, right? Because it's just like buying a stock when it's low. Eventually, if you trust the company and you know that company is going to rebound, and it's just following its like economic cycle, as we've seen the U.S. do in the past tens of times, right? Then foreign investors know that this is a great time to buy up U.S. bonds. When those U.S. bonds get bought up, that's a lot of free cash flow into the U.S. economy as an IOU, right? So in that kind of sense, I still see the U.S. stronger than NZD on a macro level, right? So we have that weekly range to the left, which is this whole sell area we want to capitalize on. We want to note that the overall trend, of course, is bearish. We have these respect points. We have the impulsive seller moves in play, right? We had this correction, which would have been a great sell-off area around, let's just say last week, but I wasn't really focused on this pair. But with NZD having the RBNZ, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand having their interest rate decision, and we saw what the RBA did last week, we are hoping for the RBNZ to signal out further rate cuts, so we could potentially see a pullback on the daily to retest this broken zone that we have once we zoom in on 4 hour, and then see further downside, especially if RBNZ follows suit with how the RBA went. And the RBA last week, we know they kept the rates as is, but they are speaking on further rate cuts to come already to help stimulate the economy, as the first rate cut they did is not giving them the results they want, right? We can see that NZD economy has been following closely to AUD, and it's been following suit, right? So now with them having their interest rate decision, we have to see if we can get that pullback, or hopefully for price to pull up a little bit more on the intraday level, and we can further short this down if we have those confirms, right? Some great confirms to short down NZD USD would be further trade war tensions, right, which would weaken both AUD and NZD, as well as if the US GDP, so we also have US GDP, US durable goods data, right? If we can get NZD to come retest this area, and then we also have the Reserve Bank of New Zealand speaking on further rate cuts and also speaking pretty much the same stuff that RBA did, and we have trade war tensions escalate, as we saw last week with the whole agriculture situation. Plus, we have an on forecast US GDP. We're going to see this range have a nice play within it, right? Anything that breaks back above this support, I'm just going to watch because it could come back to retest this area here. I just don't think we're at that point to come tap the third. Sorry, to come retest the trend line for the third time, as we've already did the second one recently and just had the impulsive move off of it. I think we could see something similar to here, where we had the tap and then we had this sort of a break of a zone here, right? And then we have this retest before more further downside, right? I want to see that sort of retest confirmed from RBNZ, and I want to see further downside on this. Even if the USD can remain neutral, if RBNZ can give the same sentiment the Reserve Bank of Australia did and signal at further rate cuts, meaning they are signaling that their economy is currently weak and they need more stimulation for it, then we can easily see that kind of retest and impulsive sell play down, right? And fill this range and fill that weekly range, right? So I want to look for something like this where we already had that tap to the respect. We failed to break higher. We had a break of a clean zone here, as you can see, which is something similar to you can see up here. And then we had that retest and further downside, right? Because we have the Reserve Bank of New Zealand speaking early in the week, and we have a lot of factors for your USD movement, such as the US GDP and durable goods, we could see that move develop in the next day or two over here, right? That's what I really want to see when we start zooming into these time frames, because we understand the market structure, we understand the range we're going for, we understand the one-sided volatility that we want NZD weaker than USD. We know some current event confirms, such as trade war tensions can escalate to further weaken NZD. And we also know that the Reserve Bank of Australia has already signaled that further rate cuts needed, and NZD will usually follow suit on a high probability case, right? So we have a bunch of confirms. We could have played off this last week, but it's all good, right? We're just going to try to adapt to see what we can get this week. Hopefully we get a nice pullback for the new weekly candle and the new top wick of the weekly, and then we can zoom into our lower time frames, because this is the overall play I'm looking for, and we understand why. Now we're just going to start looking at the market structure on the lower time frames. So this is very clean here, right? You can see even in here on an intraday level, we have a trending bearish market, and this was also a very clean break and retest of a potential lower high that was going to be created, right? We could have actually had a bounce off this area, as this whole area here is that support level on the daily, right? And we did see that reaction here, but price, all it did is retest the broken area and come back lower, and then it started reacting to the actual daily support area, right? What's key to note is you have this 4-hour support created here that was broken and retested. So we have that validation of market structure and this new market structure being created, where we can see a lower low being formed before we see that higher high to retest this trend line maybe later, right? What we want to see on our 4-hour is, for this new week anyways, is a continuation to come retest around 0.63 to come retest this zone. Failure to break higher, because we want to maintain our bearish market structure right now. We want the confirms from RBNZ, right? We want the confirms from USD being neutral or some USD strength. Any trade war tension escalations, and then we can further short down this pair to this range, right? If we break higher than one second, guys. So yeah, basically what we're looking for in the new week is a top wick to be created. We want to hold below this resistance, which was support, which broke through. We want to hold this level as 0.63, which would be a great retest of the weekly top wick, right? And then I want to see further downside to 0.615 based on our higher time frame and our overall fundamental confluences, right? So I'm going to send a breakdown on NZD JPY as well, which can have a lot more volatility with, again, having some safe haven strength, and then we'll look at that.